Hi there, everyone. Welcome to TRG 30. As Caitlin said there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's dark here in the UK and getting chilly. Caitlin, thank you for being with me again here.
Yes,
always. How are you?
Yeah, lovely. It's sunny here in Pittsburgh. It's like lovely, perfect autumn day. So sending sunshine your way, I suppose.
Thank you. Thank you. If someone further south could send warmth, that would be great.
Yes, yes.
Caitlin, we're down to the last two TRG 30s of 2021. So this is our last one together in 2021. Thank you for being alongside me through this journey. Over the last year, we've shared this space to help you ask questions, find answers, and empathize with each other as we continue to deal with and recover from the COVID pandemic. So thank you for joining us, sharing your feedback, participating and continuing the conversations with us and each other too. In the final webcast of the year and early in next, Jill will be back here with new data and big organizational strategic provocations and some guests lined up too. So today is our last time in these sessions to get tactical together in 2021. As always, you can submit your questions with the Q&A button or join us in chat on the right-hand side of your screen or on the buttons at the bottom. Make sure to select all, not just a panelist, so everyone can see how you're contributing to the conversation today. Today, we're going to distill all of our tactical conversations we've covered this year into 3 things every campaign must cover from here on out. And this will help you rebuild your audiences and organizations. So just 3 things. Let's go. First of all, keep chat open, add your comments and narrative to the discussion, and listen out for this. Affirmations, own the wins if you're already doing some of these things. Celebrate it together in whatever way you wish to. Get out an extra biscuit or make a group cup of tea or coffee, however you want to celebrate. See opportunities to enhance your current practice. Where can you make some little switches, some little nudges of the dial that will help step you further and be set up well for next year? And consider a roadmap. There's details and decisions that you've got to make collectively yourself along the way. But we have a path and we have a journey, a way to get there that we can help you talk through today. So let's start with number 1, our first of our campaign must-haves. This is Caitlin's influence. We've used so many tasty metaphors in 2021. Caitlin, I would like all, maybe the left hand too, to start off with.
Yeah, right. I know.
We've used these metaphors to help burn some of these strategies into your minds. Segmentation. Every campaign, it doesn't matter how large or small your organization is, how data savvy or data novice you may be, segmentation is really critical to building long-lasting relationships with everyone, from first-time buyers, returning ticket buyers, members, subscribers, donors, no donors, major donors, volunteers, artists, and more. We can segment in so many different ways. If you aren't doing any, the takeaway from today is to do a little. Pick a key segment that needs attention this year to ensure success next year. Please don't abandon this because your campaign has to get out of the door tomorrow. I promise you, you're setting yourselves up for harder work in the future. So Caitlin, let's give these folks a moment to review these steps. And then can you talk us through your recommendations here?
Yeah, of course. Okay, there are words on this slide. You're reading through them, but also just sit back for a moment and let's talk about why segmentation is critical, how much segmentation is critical, and what we do with it once we determine whatever it is. So the first thing I would say here about segmentation is that you've got to do some. Now, tons might not be realistic for your organization in this moment because of your budget, because of your staff, because of the size of your database or health of your data. A whole lot of segmentation might not be possible, but some is always possible. So pick, as Stephen just said, a segment, 2 segments, 3, or if you're on the super savvy end of this, 12 segments that you need to plan for in this year to build stronger relationships. That's why we segment, is to build stronger relationships. So this is just a moment to remember that we're people building relationships with other people through our artists, through the work on our walls, on our stages. And this is a deeply human connection that we all seek to make with audiences. And so remember that these are relationships that you're driving here, not just transactions. So segmentation will help you get into the mindset of the relationship, because immediately it makes you acknowledge the different ways people have engaged with your organization, when they've engaged with your organization, what they're saying, what they're thinking, what they're doing, what their behaviors are. So segmentation will be the first step to centering people in relationship-driven and relationship-oriented campaigns. So that's why we've got to do it. Do some, do any. Start with new. In fact, this year, maybe you really start with new. Maybe you focus on lapsed. We've got lousy pipelines, folks. We haven't had the same number of people coming through our venues and halls, opening our emails and participating in our social campaigns likely that you had pre-pandemic. So focus on a couple of key areas that will help you warm that pipeline up in the rest of this year and set you up for real success in 2022 and beyond. It's a hard, slow road back to getting to where we were. And in fact, I think where we're going might be quite different, but let's figure out who we need to bring along with us on that path to ensure that organizationally we're sustainable and ready to get there. Okay, so you have some segments, you know what they are. What are your goals? What do you want to see happen in this? Maybe those goals are totally transactional. Maybe they're not. Maybe you really need to focus on a segment where you're getting feedback to understand how your organization is resonating with a new community that you seek to serve or in your neighborhood. There are all kinds of things that you can look for in these relationships. I've listed some there that are totally transactional, but you will know what's right for this particular segment based on the relationships you have and all of the knowledge that you have about your place. So then we need to write down our communications plan. I was so terrible at this. I mean, I was terrible at this as a marketing director that I kept it all to myself because I had it. I was responsible for a lot of it and I kept it all right here, very close to me. And that felt more efficient. We need to write this down so that we can share our plans. We've got to be able to talk to other people about our relationship goals and strategies with our audience this year so that we don't end up with huge blind spots in how we're thinking about and communicating to these people again or for the first time. Stephen, what have I missed here in segmentation? What are you talking about right now with your clients?
Well, I think we've touched on this before about who we're communicating with. I think the goals for this segment are really key, and that we have folks that are still in a sense of limbo in relationship that we want to maintain that communication with. So we've talked about this before, folks that still have credit on account, folks that have donated their tickets. There's still people that are in a state of limbo in their relationship with you that we'll want to prioritize in segmentation. But that can feel like a lot, right? And I think your point, Caitlin, around picking one, do some. And as a side note, I can't believe that you kept all of your plans not on a spreadsheet and in your head. So,
I know, I would now. I know better. I would do it now.
I'm going to pass over that one and go to the next one.
Yeah, which is
so segmentation. We've said segmentation time and time again. Please prioritize 1 or 2 segments if you're doing none. Just try some. Let's go on to campaign structure next. There are a few key elements to the structure of all of your campaigns that will give you the greatest opportunity for success, the best chance at building strong relationships, and also actually the infrastructure for maintaining alignment and flexibility. And I'd argue that this campaign structure needs attention now, actually, at a time when I think we're seeing it's really challenging to focus. And so all of this structure and detail and sharing is getting missed, which is also, alongside with segmentation, going to set us up for challenges in the future. So here's what we've got. Let's digest these again, and then Caitlin, you'll guide us through.
Okay, we challenged ourselves here to really try and simplify the key things in the campaign structure, the architecture of your campaigns into these 3 bullets. And I recognize that in these 3 bullets, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of context and there are a lot of ways, decisions that you'll have to make along the way. And yet, if we keep focused on these 3 things in your campaign, it will give you those like mile markers along the way to know that we're on the right track here. It will keep you really centered along some really key priorities. So the first one, there's not much more to say about this except this: you've got to give yourself time. Launch early. I'm seeing so many people, for good reasons, delaying the launch of all of their single ticket sales campaigns. Subscription campaigns went out very, very late this year. I'm seeing some annual fund campaigns going out later still because of capacity, because we don't know, because there are still these huge variables that we're trying to manage internally and externally. When we do that, when we shorten our campaign, every single time it has negative effects on the possible outcome of what you can do. Doesn't mean you can't be successful in a month-long campaign, but you won't be as successful as if you had a 2-month campaign. And that's for 2 reasons. One, when you have more time to sell, you will sell more. It's just part of the nature of the beast. There's more time to reach people. You've got more entry points for people to come in. There's just more space and air in your calendar to let people in. But the second key part of that is that we get to learn along the way. And if you're launching campaigns that have very, very, very short cycles, you don't have any chance to change anything within that cycle if it's not working. So right now, because there are still variables and there's still weird stuff in our world that we have to contend with and that we can't control, you need more time so that you have the ability to change the things you can't control. So launch early. Number 2, your investments you spend in these campaigns. And the most important thing about your spend is that it's proportional to the projected revenue. So if you've got a major blockbuster that is responsible, that carries the responsibility of a huge portion of your earned revenue for the year, we've got to invest deeply in that in a proportional way compared to a concert or a show that has a very low ticket price and is likely to bring in only a few buyers. We don't want to see equal spends across every performance or concert that you're doing this year. We want to see proportional spends. So think about a 10% ratio, a 20% ratio that will help you keep your spend really commensurate with the revenue that you seek to gain there. Now, the other thing here that I would say really broadly, and this is hard because I know resources are strapped in some organizations, but we cannot underinvest this year. We've already talked about it today. We've got pipelines that are not looking like they used to. They're not great. We don't have all of that recency to pull from. And we know that recency is a great predictor of future behavior. So because we've got this gap in recency, it means we'll have to invest differently in lapsed folks. And we're going to need to see a big influx of new to organization, new to database, new to file patrons, first-time buyers. So both of these things require attention and in different ways. And so we've got to be ready to spend there, particularly against those shows and concerts where you've got huge revenue expectations. Spend. You're going to have to spend to get the audiences you need. And then the second piece here in how you're spending is, I think, quite consistent with what we've talked about over the last year and a half here, is that we really want to focus on direct, measurable channels first. We've got to be able to know if the work that we're doing is having an impact. Are we seeing the results we need based on our investment? So as you're allocating your marketing expenses for any given campaign, start with direct mail, with email, if you are paying for that in any way, with digital, measurable digital campaigns, social campaigns. How are you talking to people directly, telemarketing, telefunding, so that you know what the results of that work is? And then if you've got more to spare, great. Move into radio and TV and outdoor and print and all of the other channels that are at your disposal, at your disposal, sorry. But start first, of course, with these direct channels. Remember, we're in the relationship business. I'll say it again in just a moment. We're in this business, so let's build those relationships directly. Okay, and then the last piece, because we're in these relationships, we've got to track our response rates by segment. You have to know in these campaigns who is saying yes, so that either in that campaign or in your next campaign, you can adjust your spend and your prioritization accordingly. We've got to know who is coming back and who's saying yes now, so that we invest in the right relationships at the right time. Okay, Stephen, campaign structures. There's so much more we could say here. I would remind everyone, I pretended like I wanted your opinion yet. I don't, but I do in a minute. I think it would be really good to go back and watch the TRG 30 we did a couple of months ago with James Dale from Sign Digital. Digital is and likely will continue to be a huge portion of your spend. And he gave some really great advice for how to structure those campaigns. And there are changes happening in that digital sphere, and we've got to be ready for them. Those changes might happen in 2023, maybe a bit earlier, but you'll need to be working with your vendors or your internal team to make sure you're ready for digital so you can get the most out of that spend. Okay, Stephen, what did I miss?
No, I would agree. And don't forget, you can look at those past TRG 30s on our website. Just click TRG 30, they're all there. And good digital was that session. I think I want to come back to your point around direct mail and our database. We've got to get our database re-engaged. And direct mail is getting some of the highest response rates that we've seen. Not universally, it depends on product, depends on segments. There's nuance to all of this, but direct mail is getting strong response rates, and we've got to get our database back to recent and frequent activity. So that means a segmented, measurable. You can measure direct mail. We can definitely measure response rates with direct mail, right? And by segment, as Caitlin said. So, to labor that point, if direct mail is not in your mix, it needs to be in your mix. And I appreciate there's challenges with the number of people you can contact in the UK, depending on data permissions. But those that you can, if they've not booked for a future production, we've got an opportunity to get them re-engaged. And the longer we leave it, the less chance we have of getting those folks back and re-engaged. Okay, finally then, stewardship. Those of you that are joining us from development are well versed in this work, but now is the time to make sure everyone on your team is as fluent as you. Start by rethinking your roles in regards to patron interaction. So often our approach to this is designed in a sort of a customer support style. We solve problems when they arise and actively try to prevent them from happening again, right? Instead, let's think of ourselves as success agents. We don't just want to remove hurdles and solve problems. We want to actively plan for and create opportunities for our patron relationships to succeed. Who can model and champion this in your organization? Who is today that we can build on, right? So, Caitlin, here are the musts. You know the drill. Let's digest, and then can you let us know your thoughts here?
Yeah. Did you hear the sneezes in the background here? You all are in the relationship business, in marketing, ticketing, box office, front of house, your ushers, security. Anyone who is coming into contact with your patrons has an opportunity to steward those relationships on behalf of the organization and on behalf of the patron. We have opportunities in this to build relationships at every single step along the way. Now, all too often, I think campaigns are structured in a way, particularly sales-oriented campaigns, where it feels over when someone says yes. They've said yes, great. Now we don't need to talk to them. We can keep our focus on new sales and generating revenue. Yes, yes, yes. And we keep them with us, but they're sort of on the back burner until they get to a show, which could be months from the date of their purchase. And then right after the show, we ask them what they thought. We do that pretty well. But we've got all of this time in between when someone says yes and when they attend, when we ask for their opinion, or even when they come back a second time, to build a relationship that I think we're not taking advantage of, just holistically as a sector. And this is a place where I think you can and should invest this year. If you've got smaller houses coming back right now, if you're not seeing that the same number of households participating with you, if you're still operating under reduced capacity or just fewer performances than you have in the past, we really, really, really have to lean into the relationships that we are starting or that we have reactivated in this season coming into 2022. So what does this mean? It means that as soon as they say yes, particularly if they're brand new buyers, we have an opportunity to welcome them. We get to say, thank you for coming, and here's what you just invested in. Here are the values of our organization. Here's what we do. Here's who we are. Maybe you said yes to a product, but now let's talk about the relationship that you can expect from us. Here's how we're going to show up. You can give them information about what it'll feel like in your venue. You can give them information about the show they're about to see. Yes, they've already purchased, so they don't need to see a buy tickets link at the bottom of that email, but they might be particularly interested in knowing more about the work that's coming out. So how are we bringing people along a journey with us after they say yes? The other part of this right now that I think feels so important, particularly here in the States, where I think many organizations are doing this, not all, but many, have new vaccine checks or ID checks or extra layers of touch point on site. This is an opportunity for us to really welcome people differently. How are we using every single touch point along the way in their journey with us on site and before, to really solidify that relationship, to teach, to listen, to grow, to welcome? And then I've just listed all these verbs because I love verbs, because this is very much an action-oriented process. Stewardship isn't passive. It requires a lot of work, and there are a lot of actions that you can take to steward a relationship. And so I've just listed some here to inspire your thinking. This can also be tremendously creative work and very bespoke to your organization. Once we get into stewardship, that's where your values and your tone, your language, your everything starts to become a really critical part of that relationship building. So we can welcome people, thank them, teach them, we can sell to them, we can close loops with them when they've given us feedback or asked questions. We can listen, we can invite, we can support, we can help, we can do things all along the way. So pick a few of those that feel right for some of these segments of people that are coming back now. And then finally, a reminder to myself as well as to all of you is we've got to write it down. Write it down and make it happen. When we write it down and we share it with our colleagues, we're creating a different sense of accountability in this work, and we're getting the opportunity to share it and get other people's feedback about how we're approaching these relationships. Stewardship is so important for everyone in your organization to participate in. So we've got to get it out of just being development vernacular and really bringing it into all patron-facing campaigns and personnel, part of their vocabulary too. So that's what we're thinking about here. Stewardship. Yeah, Stephen, go ahead.
Well, Caitlin, you haven't picked these campaign musts because they feel and sound nice, right? We have seen before the pandemic, and we're seeing now through the pandemic, the impact that this has on data. Like, data is the guiding light for TRG, right? And so we can see the impact that this type of investment really, really has on household and database growth and engagement within organizations. I just spent some time with a client who I know is on this call today, hi, just before TRG 30, to go through the impact that their stewardship has had on their database. You can see it in the retention and spend and growth of households. So these campaign musts that we've stepped through here today, we know that it makes a difference to outcomes on the other end, as well as, quite frankly, it feels good. It feels good stewarding and guiding relationships in this way. So I hope that those three are helpful focus points to you. There's time for questions, so you can pop them in the Q&A button. I know there's one already in there, which we'll take in just a second. But just a reminder that TRG is here. If you need help, reach out. You can live chat us on our website, or you can contact us via email, letstalk@trgarts.com. Your colleagues and peers are here. And if you need help, reach out. There's still 5 minutes to chat to each other on chat. Please, by all means, contact each other there too. And look, if you keep people at the center of your campaign, we are confident that we're going to build back to those pre-pandemic numbers. If that's your goal, as Caitlin said, the other side of this is going to look different for all of us. For those development folks on the call, we've got a deeper dive session for donation, annual fund membership. We've got a session coming up next week, I think, that Caitlin will be leading. And please join us there. And we'll be launching, in fact, an updated website at the end of this week when you can see all the different ways that you can engage with TRG through the rest of this year and into 2021. 2022, goodness me, 2021, Stephen. Okay, question time. Tim has asked if we have any advice on how to build this communications plan. Might there be templates available? I know we have a structure that we work through with clients, but I wonder if there's some high level advice that you'd give to someone building this themselves from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I'm going to tell you some of the things that we look at with our clients when we're building it. So we do it by segment. You want the date that something needs to land. When are people going to see this? Work backwards from there for when your staff and your team needs to get things to printers and such. When is it in households or in email boxes? Who are we talking to? What is the goal of that communication? What's the deadline if there are offers associated with it? And then a descriptor of what channels you're using. Is this an email? Is this a postcard? Is this a phone call? And then you might put, if you're working with a larger team, who's responsible? Who's the lead on each of these pieces? But I would keep it really simple. You know, we can get a bit buried sometimes in building beautiful, stunning, really detailed things that then start to feel like, because they take so much work, that they're etched in concrete. So I would find something that's really easy to manipulate. We do it in Excel because you can sort and delete and get rid of stuff in a lot of easy ways. You could do it in Word, but I would say keep something really simple that everyone can understand in your organization. I personally find that pages and pages and pages of Word documents that describe in detail every email, that's really hard to share. But broadly, to be able to look at the timeline, who we're talking to, what the goal is, what the channel is, and if there's a deadline, gives me all the information to know what the structure of your communication cycle is. Yes, Peter, that's really good advice, right? Google Sheets allow for really easy collaboration. So I think that's a great tip.
Mm. And I think as well, you know, don't build this in isolation as a marketing and development team, right? Operate from one plan, one communications plan, one set of patrons, right? Brian, I empathize with you here. You know, how do we build this when we're at capacity? We don't have full staff teams. How do we break this down into something that might be manageable when we're at full capacity right now?
No, I think where I would start are what are your relationship goals for your organization in this season? How can this campaign support those goals? And then start with segmentation. Well, here are my goals. What are the segments that are going to help get me there the fastest? And then how do I invest in each of those segments? How do I talk to them? When do I talk to them? What are the key messages associated with each of them? So, I mean, yes, doing it by yourself it's hard, right? I mean, and then you end up like me, and then you end up just keeping it all in your head. I would still put something down on paper, and I would talk to colleagues from other organizations. Here's how I'm approaching this. What do you do? Let's just compare how we might go through some of this. There's no need to be in competition with other organizations in your community. Right now, we just have people coming back into the sector actively. So pull on all of the relationship strings that you have where you are to make the best campaign that you can.
Yeah, and you know, we really do sympathize with you with this. And I think, you know, give yourself the time to look and digest a plan and stop. Sometimes we just have to stop and make that, because we're going to be able to measure it and show the impact that all of your effort has had when we're monitoring it and measuring it and writing it down.
Yes.
I know there's another question, but we're out of time. And thank you for joining us. Jill will be back at the next TRG 30. Caitlin, it's been great sharing this year with you and with all of you that are on this call today. Really, really appreciate it. And it's lovely to hear your feedback and thoughts afterwards. So until next time, thank you, and we'll be with you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.